Part 2 of fractions of amounts is going to get a little bit more tricky. So far, we've dealt with things like find 2/3 of 60. But now I'm going to ask you, can we find 2/3 of a half? So I want to know how to find a fraction of a fraction. Let's start with the one that you probably can tell me without even thinking. What is a half of a half? Let's use a diagram to help. If I cut this half in half, I've got a quarter. Okay, let's try another one. What is 1/3 of a half? Now, I'm going to go back to my one drawn as a line here. Here is a half. I want to find 1/3 of that line. 1/3 of that half. So I'm going to cut it into 3 pieces. And that piece on the end is 1/3 of a half. But what fraction of the whole is that? Well, the problem is this piece is cut into 3 and this is just one big piece. So I'm going to need to cut down here. So what is the answer to this question? If you've spotted it's 1/6, you've done very well. Some of you now will be looking at these first 2 answers and looking for patterns. Let's try another. What is 1/4 of 1/3? So here is 1/3. And now I'm going to cut that into 4 equal sized pieces. And then you're going to tell me to cut the other thirds into 4 equal sized pieces. Here is 1/4 of my original third. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1/12. Look at the 3 sums we've done and see if you can spot a pattern. If I then said to you, what's 1/5 of 1/7? You should be able to come up with some ideas. I'm hoping that some of you were going to suggest it's this. Because what we're going to do to find 1/5 of 1/7 is we're going to draw 1/7. And when we cut that into 5 pieces and find just one of those, we're going to have 1 bit. But each of our sevenths will now make up 5 bits. And 7 of those, each cut into 5 bits, will give me 35 pieces, making up the whole one, or 35 bits. I'm hoping now if I put 1/6 of 1/10, everyone's going to know the answer. So, you all thought 1/60th, or hopefully. And if you didn't, you're about to see a rule develop. Okay, so what we know so far is when we're finding 1/2 or 1/3 of something, we've got a bit of a pattern emerging here with our numbers. 2, 2, 4, 3, 2, 6, 4, 3, 12, 5, 7, 35, 6, 10, 60. What's that pattern I'm referring to? If I was to write it in algebra, I would write it like this. What goes here? It would be A times by B. Or for those of you who've studied plenty of algebra, you'd write that without the multiply. So, we have a pattern here. We have a bit of a rule developing. Now let's test if our rule always works. Let's find 2/3 of 3/4. Now, straight away, I'm worried about our rule. Because in every case for our rule, our numerators were 1. What's going to happen now? I think some of you will tell me the denominator is 12. That's a sensible idea. Whether it's right or not, we'll find out in a minute. But what could the numerator be? Let's find out. We're finding 2/3 of 3/4. So we're going to start with a diagram that shows 3/4. So here is a whole one that I've sliced into 4. And here are my 3/4. Now, each quarter I want to take 2/3 of it. So I'm going to have to slice it into 3 and take 2 of those. I've taken 2 out of 3 equal sized pieces from each quarter. Now, I haven't done anything with this last one, but I probably should slice it into thirds as well. Let's have a look at what we've got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2/3 of 3/4 is 6 somethings. Out of what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's interesting. So our original rule and our original idea was correct. It didn't just work when we had numerators of 1. Do you think this rule here is the same as here? Can you suggest to me how this 6 could have been found in an easier way? Just like you all predicted the 12. Let's have another go and see. Let's do 4/5 of a half. Predict the answer. So it's 4/5 of a half, so I need to draw a half. There it is. And I'm going to slice it into fifths. And then I'm going to take 4 of those. Now I better slice the other half into fifths. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out of how many? 10. Interesting. If we look now at some of our examples, this is what we've got. Can you see a pattern in the numbers that allows us to find a fraction of a fraction? Look along the numbers. Can you spot anything? Hopefully, you've seen that the numerators appear to be multiplied. Same as earlier, we saw the denominators are multiplied. So we do have a pattern. If I was to use algebra to write this, one times 1 is 1, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 4 is 12. So A of C is A times C, B of D is B times D. So we appear to have a rule for finding fractions of fractions. Now, if I was your teacher, I would write an S next to these two. Because these answers can also be simplified. We'll cover that shortly, but we've come up with a method for finding fractions of fractions.